As a state, Victoria continues to wallow under Daniel Andrews' premiership. It's a state that has been pummeled and battered, not through bad luck, but through appalling mismanagement, and it continues to remain mired in deepening controversy. At the heart of all its gloom has been one central figure, Dan Andrews. Andrews has been the architect of and responsible for many catastrophic failures and controversies that have led to Victoria's demise and the position it's in. Now, whether incompetence or corruption, there has been a consistent theme to the Andrews government and how it is governed. Money has been at the core of everything disturbing about it, all of it laced with incompetence, or even worse, corruption and misappropriation. This week, Victorians learned how incompetent the Victorian Government is. ESTA, the Emergency State Telecommunications Authority, who are responsible for dispatching 000 calls, found itself embroiled in a scandal around call response times and calls not being answered. Since October 12th last year, 12 Victorians like Nick Panagiotis and Alicia Hussain lost their lives because ESTA failed to do its job. ESTA either failed to respond to calls or there were lengthy delays in answering calls. However, ESTA's failures are not of its making. ESTA is dependent on funding for its operational resources from the Victorian Government. But the Victorian Government has failed to adequately fund and resource ESTA. And by failing ESTA, the Victorian Government has allowed ESTA to fail Victorians. And just as it's done with COVID and the destruction of lives and the economy, and how it has set about to deliberately destroy I-Cook Foods, the 58 workplace safety charges, and the list goes on and on. It seems Victoria lives mean little to the Andrews government. And what is important to Andrews is money, and more importantly, his ability to maintain power. Victoria is unravelling rapidly, and a reinforcement of its distress is when organisations like ESTA and Ambulance Victoria are under threat of collapse because of government incompetence, mismanagement and negligence. Where appropriate funding and resources should have been directed towards operational duties of ESTA and Ambulance Victoria, they weren't. So why did the Victorian Government fail to adequately fund two organisations critical to saving Victoria's lives? Why has the Victorian Government allowed ESTA and Ambulance Victoria to rot? And that has led to a series of endemic problems ESTA and Ambulance Victoria are now encountering. Both are now incapable of fulfilling the demands of their charter. Ambulance Victoria also has its problems, and it's contending with those. It is also having to deal with allegations of bullying, rape, sexual assault and harassment. 12 of Ambulance Victoria's employees have reported rape or attempted rape or sexual assault at work, and 2 men have been referred to Victoria Police for the alleged sexual assault of colleagues. The Victorian Equal Opportunity and Human Rights Commission found that over 52% said that they had been bullied, whereas 47% had experienced discrimination and 33% reported pressures for sex or requests for sex acts at work. ESTA and Ambulance Victoria are struggling to recruit adequate staff because the Victorian Government has failed to properly resource and oversee both. Data obtained suggests ongoing and systematic failings exist within the ambulance division of the state's Emergency Response Call Authority, and it's a problem that has been brewing for years. Out of embarrassment and exposure by a 60-minute report, the Andrews government suddenly decided to inject a $115 million reform package into ESTA, along with creating 120 new jobs. So how is the Andrews government now able to find funding to invest in ESTA? And what about Ambulance Victoria? Graduates emerging from the Australian Catholic University and Victoria University's paramedics course are finding it difficult to find work because of the high number of students still, despite being qualified, looking for jobs. Controversy has long reigned over Victoria's Department of Health and Human Services, and the problems with Victoria's health system has nothing to do with lack of money, but more to do with how it's spent and how it's managed. DHHS in 2020 had over 100 senior executives. They had 14 deputy secretaries compared to New South Wales just 5. And to think Victoria's Minister for Emergency Services, Jacqueline Symes, said delays in call taking are unacceptable. She couldn't have thought that it was too unacceptable if she was prepared to allow the problem to last as long as it did. So Symes and Andrews owe the families not only an apology, but all Victorians an explanation as to why they allowed the system to fail. But that's an expectation of wishful thinking. All Victorians will get is obfuscation and spin. As for Andrews, rather than emerge out of his bunker to announce Foo Fighter concerts or to refuse to answer questions about that person, he should display leadership and accept, explain and be accountable for the ongoing failings of his government.